A Texas fugitive from justice finds her Gibson in a cause worth fighting for when labor tensions break out in the lumber mills and logging camps of western Louisiana. Now that should be a movie. Hello, thank you for watching today's episode of That Should Be a Movie. I'm C.W. Johnson Jr. Today's book I like the Britches movie is Always for the Underdog, Whether Britches Smith and the Grabow War by Keagan, LeJeune from University of North Texas Press. Cue exciting, adventurous Western orchestra piece with a hint of folk music. America! Always for the Underdog takes place along the Louisiana-Texas border at the Sabine River. Like I said in my reviews of Kurt Isle's books, The Wayfaring Stranger and A Good Place, this area was known as no man's land because neither side, first Spain and France, then Spain and America, and then Mexico and America, could not decide where the border was. Some thought it was Red River, some thought it was the Rio Grande, so they decided that 30-40 miles east-west of the Sabine River would be a no-go zone, demilitarized zone, with no authority over it, so it became a refuge for outlaws, desperados, runaway slaves, and pioneers who just wanted to live free. And it became a microcosm of Western expansionism and settlement even after America had moved all the way to California, much like Appalachia and certain parts of the Rockies, according to 1970s Family Pioneer Saga TV shows. There are a few downsides to the book. Sometimes it feels like it's a anthropological thesis for a college course on the culture of no man's land of the day. Other times it feels like a travel log through western Louisiana. And other times it feels like a psychological discourse on the effect of the American outlaw on the American psychic and why outcasts appeal to the common American people. And I understand, having gone through no man's land a lot, I mean, relatives who live along the Sabine River, hearing the stories about them growing up down there, there is a mystique about the place, and it does feel like you have driven into the past whenever you go down there. You feel like you pass through a pine curtain, and there's the mantle of the past is still hanging over the place. You might see Shangri-La, Brigadoon rising out of the mist, sort of. So I understand the tendency to want to eulogize, romanticize, write an ode to the land and to the people there. However, it is distracting from the narrative of Britches Smith and the Grabow War, and it breaks the concentration in the narrative, and it's really hard to get back into it once that concentration has been broken. So it does get kind of redundant and kind of superfluous at times. And I really wish Mr. LeJeune would have tried to decide what he thought happened at the Grabow War, and in that way, instead of trying to give all the different perspectives of different witnesses said happened, maybe he could have left all the other perspectives as footnotes at the end. Now to the positives. Mr. LeJeune's book does shed light on an often neglected aspect of Western settlement and the economic development of the United States and the Southern history and Louisiana history in particular, that is, lumber and the logging industry. A lot of people don't realize that one of the last great national gold rushes on a natural resource within the continental United States was the lumber that could be found in the virgin forest of the southeastern United States. It was often called green gold. And there were boom towns that popped up all around it. Often these were lumber camps that were built out in the woods to make it more efficient to have the employees out there in the middle of the woods rather than transport them back and forth between towns. And when the lumber ran out, boom, we had ghost towns. And it was, like I said, it was called green gold. This rush lasted from about the 1870s to the 1920s, employed millions of Americans and immigrants. In 1900 alone, about $17 million worth of lumber was cut down within the state of Louisiana. While some of the companies were local, a lot of them were run by businessmen from far-off places like New York, Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco. Because of the Homestead Act, like a lot of people think the Homestead Act just had to do with farmers out in Nebraska, but because of the Homestead Act, captains of industry could come down to the South and they could buy millions of acres for pennies on the dollar. And so the lumber industry is part of Western settlement. LeJeune's book does a great job of setting light on that aspect of history. He also shed light on the lumber industry and its part in the development of labor relations and union building. According to the Mudruckers, a socialist propagandist, and even government investigations and committees into the conditions of the lumber camps, things were pretty bad, as naturally back then, because it was part of the company system, which often kept people entrapped for life. As the old saying went, you were born in a company hospital, you were taught in a company school, you lived in a company town, you worked for the company sun up to sundown, you married a company wife in a company church, you lived in a company house, which often was in terrible and deplorable conditions, you were treated by a company doctor, declared dead by a company coroner, and buried in a company graveyard in a company casket. And you were also paid in company script, which you could only spend at the company store, so it was indentured, very much an indebted system that was hard to escape. There were some people who said that some of the camps and sawmill towns had walls around them to keep people from escaping. I don't know how true that is, but it was similar to the plantation system that could be found in the Old South. But at the same time, a lot of lumber companies, even though they did work people to death, they often helped save. They were often paid better than the sharecroppers, and a lot of subsistence farmers were able to carve a living out of the wilderness, literally, and be able to afford enough to help their families have and their children have a better life in the future. And I really wish Mr. LeJeune could have delved more into the history of the lumber industry in Louisiana and its effect and the labor relations. Into this situation comes Britches Smith. Now, no one knows really who he was. Some say he came from Clarksville, Texas, after he killed his wife in a drunken rage. But they believe he came from Texas because he wore chaps on his legs like cowboys, which meant when he was walking through the woods, he would need to protect his legs from briars and thorns, and you would only have to do that in Texas because of the big thicket. Which in Texas they let all the brush grow up. While in Louisiana they burned it away for their cattle to be out in the woods. Some people think it might have to do with the fact that his pants were greasy, but they say everybody's pants were greasy back then. Now, some people think, well, the Britches Smith was a hero. Other people think he was a villain because he would live out in the woods. He could survive out there, and he didn't have to work for the man at the company store. Some say he would terrorize the farmers out in the woods. He would go into their yards, shoot a chicken's head off with his gun, shoot the chicken inside, throw it on the table, and force the farm wife to cook his dinner for him. People out in the country, he was a villain. But to a lot of people working logging camps, lumber mills, and sawmill towns, he was a hero for helping organize union efforts to demand better and safer working conditions and entering the company system. And they would say that he would go around gathering up people to be part of the unions, and if he found someone who was injured and they could not work, had legitimate reasons not to work in the lumber mills and be a part of the union, he would spare their lives, even though a lot of union people wanted to lynch these people that weren't being a part of them because they thought they were scabs who were making money and just sucking up to the man instead of trying to make things better in the camp. People like Britches Smith caused a lot of tension, forcing people to join the union. And even though some of the mills were owned locally or regionally and took fairly decent care of their people for the time, a lot were owned nationally and didn't really care about public relations. So a lot of the companies ended up bringing in Burns detectives, Pinkerton detectives, union busters, union spies, guards to protect their lumber camps and their sawmill towns. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the labor movement in the United States and public relations with labor was a very violent time in American history. Late 1900s, early 20th century, there was a lot of violence, and this shows how divided Americans were over this issue back then, as we are divided over a lot of issues today. And because there are several different organizations involved with this tension, there was the Southern Labor Operatives Association, the SLOA, which was pro-business. There was the Brotherhood of Timber Workers, the BTW, which was very popular in Louisiana and Texas. I believe if you see graveyards where there are tombstones which are saved by trees, I believe the person buried there was a member of the BTW. And there was the American Federation of Labor, which is kind of moderate, and there was the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW, which was pretty radical. If you didn't vote, you couldn't work at the place where they had organized. And so all this tension culminated in the Grabow War incident riot at Grabow, Louisiana, which is near present-day Maryville, Louisiana, on July 7th, 1912, in which 3 people were instantly killed in a gunfight, and a lot of people were wounded, and one of these people later ended up dying. So it started off with a lot of rumors about people being killed somewhere else, and there was a Union speech going on, and there was drink involved, and there were several drunken insults thrown back and forth between the camp guards and the Union members, and guns were drawn, and they had a old-style gunfight in the streets of Grabow, Louisiana, and several bystanders were hit, and several innocent animals were hit too and killed. There's a lot of tension in the area, so a lot of people were arrested, mainly Union workers, and there was a trial, and it was at this trial that the legend of Britches Smith became public and was enshrined in the folk culture of western Louisiana. Somebody said that Britches Smith lined up the Union workers and led them into battle like he was a officer. Others say that like a sniper, he killed several guards, like 6 guards, from afar, and the company buried them in order to save face, and that's a legend. Other people say he hid behind a wagon and sawed away the post holding up the awning to the front of the lumber mill, and knocking it down and trapping the guards inside so they couldn't come out and join the battle. So this is how the legend of Britches Smith began. Now, on the honesty of every outlaw in American history, Britches Smith had to die. Even though he stood up for certain segments of society had to remain peaceful and progress by getting rid of dangerous elements like civilization had to do away with them. So some say he was ambushed at his shack out in the woods. Some people say the posse was so afraid of him that they sent someone else inside, a black guy, to make sure he was dead. Others say that he was betrayed and he was walking down the railroad track and was ambushed. The fact of the matter remains was he was killed and he was buried in Maryville, and how he was buried says a lot about what the community thought about him. He was buried face down, so he was looking towards hell where they thought he was going. He was also buried facing west, which in Louisiana, Texas, they bury people facing east so they can see Christ when he returns. So people obviously did not think very highly of him if they thought his back would be to Christ when Christ returned, so they buried him facing west. I believe that Always for the Underdog would make a great western or action flick. It could also inspire a lot of fictional stories or novels, because it fires the imagination with its portrayal of the epic struggle of the common man to literally carve a home out of the wilderness, and his everyday struggle to both provide for his family by being a good worker and provide for future generations and make the world a better place for them by fighting for better labor conditions. It also sheds light on the often neglected aspect of Louisiana and American history in the economic development and western settlement. So I believe it would make a great western if it could be filmed in Louisiana, about some of the great state parks and national forests we have out in western Louisiana, if only the people down in Baton Rouge would bring back the film tax credit program. So yes, I believe that Always from the Underdog by Keagan and LeJeune should be a movie. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comment section what book you'd like to see me review next. Thank you.